Look around the world. Global house price indices, whether we're looking at Canada, Australia, New Zealand, US, and the UK, they're not what they once were. Let's get serious right now. Let's talk about what we have seen. You know that throughout 2018, it was looking bad. Now let's see if they all start to go back into that quantitative easing mode, printing money, reducing interest rates. Let's see what happens throughout 2019. It will be exciting, no doubt. ANZ chief executive has admitted the bank's branch staff have in the past been, quote, more likely to shortcut the process in assessing loan applications for existing customers by leaning on the controversial HEM benchmark. So we're going to talk about this for a moment. This is really important, okay? The HEM, or Household Expenditure Measure, is a tool used by banks to determine whether customers can afford to pay off a loan. It has been criticized for the vastly underestimating living expenses, potentially leaving borrowers struggling to make their repayments. So we got some big news right here, because they're telling us it's safe. They're telling us they're using these measures, and then they use HEM, which doesn't account for the living expenses. Suddenly people can't actually afford it, but they're doing so you don't need to worry, right? Well, as soon as the expenses increase just a little bit too much, it's gonna break their back. So KPMG, the auditors, took a look at this back in 2016, I'm sure it's worse today, and found that the bank had defaulted, quote, defaulted to the HEM in 73% of cases. So they basically said, we're going to go this way 73% of the time. Well, why not? It allows people to get more rather than carrying out a proper assessment of the borrower's expenses. That's right. Let's just do it this way. It's easier. You're going to get it real good. You'll be able to take on more money. That means more commission. That means more profit for the company. Everybody's happy. And of course, they give excuses for why they did this, but the real truth is that it's all about corporate profits. The more money that you can give out, the more you'll make back over time. They have a very good business here with real estate. The way that they sell the mortgage, it's a product. That's why these exist, to make these companies money, the shareholders and so on. Where credit goes, so do house prices. Taking a look at this chart at the bottom, just explaining the fact that where that credit is, it's obviously expanding these assets. Wherever that is, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be in Australia. It doesn't even have to be in real estate at all. We look around to all the different asset classes and we see the same situation. While declining home prices in Sydney and Melbourne have made home buyers in these markets far more cautious, the ongoing challenges assessing finance that face many would-be home buyers across the rest of the country continue to weigh on new home sales. They talk about the slowdown in sales in here, and I think it's pretty obvious what we're seeing globally today. Sales have slowed down. It's not just because we're in the winter season. Look, it's not even winter in Australia. They're having that issue. Every time I do a real estate video or talk about real estate, have it slowed down recently, people just point to the fact that, oh, it's because it's wintertime. It always happens in wintertime. Shut up. Well, if you look around and actually open up your eyes, take those blinders off, please. You do yourself a favor. You would know Australia slowing down still, and here we are in their summertime, right? This is the way it works. Pending home sales drop in December despite much lower interest rates. That's what I was talking about earlier. This is the United States. Looking at this as an example, inventories have built up as well. Then we talk about the UK. British homeowners could be in for another disappointing year as Brexit uncertainty threatens to sap all enthusiasm out of the property market in 2019. Annual house price growth almost ground to a complete halt in January. The economic outlook remains unusually uncertain. This cannot continue for that long without it impacting individuals in the workplace. We've seen many lose their jobs as a result. Those who are selling the mortgages have been in different areas. We've seen them getting pushed off, if you want to call it that. And the way that it works is simply that if you can't maximize the amount amount of money you're making for the company, you got to be let go. Okay, so let's be realistic about that. And then we get into this last one here very quickly, talking about Vancouver, BC. BC home sales declined 25% in 2018. You can see the chart there. This is all BC. When you look at it in more detail, seeing it by city, the sales are much worse. I saw something around 40 to 50% the last time I checked for Vancouver. Obviously, this has become a very serious issue for a lot of individuals, investors, and people who have taken on way too much debt. There's no other way to look at this. You have to be honest about it. Okay, so I'm going to end the video right there. I hope that this was informative to you. If it was, please give me a thumbs up. Where else can you go that you're getting all of this global information on a daily basis? I post twice a day, many days, and you'll see in this case here, we're talking about Australia, US, Canada, and the UK in one jam-packed video. I bring you all the data, all the details, and I do something. Instead of getting to all this opinion, I'm giving you the data. So all you have to do to support me is click that like button. That's it. That's all you got to do. Click that like button. Every time you come into these videos, click that button. I know a lot of people have told me they click the button, they come back to the video later. Unfortunately, it's not clicked. So I really ask you to do so. If you are subscribed on here, definitely I want to thank you as well. If you haven't, but you've been watching these videos, you definitely want to click that subscribe button. You can click the little bell icon too so that you get notified every single time there's a new posting. And this really just helps to support me in my work. So thank you. The last thing I wanted to say is that if you want to know more about real estate, then these two books get into everything. We're talking about the asset classes themselves. I then talk about the strategies for individuals who don't have a lot of money. In the second book, I get into some of that as well, but all the fundamental aspects are more in the Money GPS book. Then between the two of them, you're going to get an education, quite frankly, that is missing from the school system. Two books, I think is pretty amazing. Check them out at the link in the description if you want the audiobook that's available at themoneygps.com.